Godzilla is probably one of the most infamous tokusatsu series of films. Even if they seem to be moving away from the actor and suit formula in recent years, Godzilla remains an unstoppable force despite his entourage of foes. But that's just the thing here. Not all of these villains of his are actual villains. You may be confused or think, well, duh, as some of the series' villains are more so enemies or rivals, such as Rodan or Kong. But I'm not just talking about any kind of villain from this franchise. Oh no, these guys have been painted as the villain, even if they weren't entirely that in their debut. And ever since, that's basically the role they've been stuck in. I simply want to talk about these kaijus who I personally feel like they get the short end of the stick when it comes to both official and non official media because I personally don't believe they deserve it. First, we'll be looking at Mechagodzilla's partner in crime, Titanosaurus. First appearing in the 1975 film Terror of Mechagodzilla, being the finale of the Showa era of films, Titanosaurus appears as Mechagodzilla's backup, also providing the first time Godzilla would have to fight two monsters alone in a film. Titanosaurus would prove to be a very formidable opponent, being able to make gusts of winds and has been even shown strong enough to lift Godzilla up by his nose. The funny thing is, despite all this, Titanosaurus is actually a peaceful aquatic kaiju who is simply mind controlled. And yet there's plenty of media out there who paints Titanosaurus as aggressive in some way. Yeah, there are still times he's under some sort of control, but in Godzilla Unleashed and even recent works such as Mothra vs. Titanosaurus from the Godzilla Rivals comic series, he's territorial. When it comes to fan works, I haven't seen much, but it still usually boils down to the latter or simply just making fun of his roar. Yeah. Now, I don't personally mind this. In fact, my own take on Titanosaurus can be a bit aggressive, but I would love to see more people focus on that supposedly more peaceful side. Maybe he's actually neutral, and if you annoy him enough, that's where he becomes more aggressive. Out of them all, I wouldn't say Titanosaurus got it the worst, and again, what he's been changed into is something I don't personally mind. It's just that aspect he's supposed to have is something we've never been able to properly see. Next one, however, I can see why people have her be the ways he is. Godzilla vs. Biollante is the second film in the Heisei era of films, coming out in 1989. Erica was a human girl who helped her father with botanical engineering and was sent to experiment with Godzilla's cells, cause that's a great idea. Before anything could be truly done, though, the lab was blown up with Erica inside, killing her. Her grief-stricken father would splice her DNA with a rose and eventually Godzilla's cells, and this would lead to Biollante. What makes Biollante interesting besides her origins is that Erica's spirit is in fact conscious within her and is absolutely terrified over what she's become. It's more concerning though that the Godzilla side of her fairly quickly begins to suppress her and also has its own connotations of how Godzilla works. This is also the side of her that most people focus on. Nothing more but a vicious rub. Although no one really focuses on that human aspect anymore and how that in of itself could be interesting. There are versions of Biollante where she is instead a guardian of sorts and even provided some sort of aid. Biollante is a favorite of mine, and it just pains me to see her treated more as a mindless beast than something actually fairly deep. Yes, the movie itself doesn't go quite as deep with it either, but there is definitely potential. Otherwise, I don't mind having her be a vicious guardian of sorts. And speaking of guardians, Godzilla vs. Mothra, Battle for Earth. A 1992 film in the Heisei era is among my most favorite Godzilla films and introduces a kaiju I'd probably put in my top 5 favorites. Batra. I'm a sucker for clones or doppelgangers, and Godzilla himself has several, but who could imagine we'd get one from Mothra? What's more interesting is that it specifically stated that the Earth itself created Batra, all in order to stop a civilization from controlling the climate. Unlike his more peaceful counterpart, Batra decided there was only one way to handle this: absolute extinction of the human race. You think Godzilla and Mothra would have to put aside their differences and fight against this new threat, right? Wrong. It's Mothra and Batra who decide to work together and put Godzilla in his place. You know, this is a great film. Mothra is in a more prominent role and actually doesn't die again. And hey, there are two adult moths around now. I can't wait to see how their dynamic could grow from here. Gosh dang it! Ever since then, Batra has mostly just served the role as a baddie of some form when he makes an appearance. Sure, with good reason, but it always just felt there was this side of Batra most people forget, and that is the fact he does what he does for good intentions. Yes, wiping out the entire human race and trying to kill anyone in your way is going too far, but it feels like everyone is forgetting that he's only doing this because he thinks it's the only way the Earth can survive. He is completely willing to put his life on the line if it means Earth is safe. But no, we got to have him be the anti-moth. Luckily, in recent years, Batra does seem to have been given a slightly better hand, even if a small one. Like with the Godzilla Rivals issue versus Batra, where in the end he actually isn't killed or technically even defeated, but convinced that there are humans dealing with the hardships and want a healthier Earth too, and he peacefully leaves. I want to see this side of Batra more. A vengeful guardian who does indeed have a heart deep within, and isn't killed, that's been done to death with Mothra. The next one is more of an honorable mention. In recent years, I think Godzilla fans have been doing better about this one, but there are still plenty of Zilla haters out there. If you don't like him, that's fine, but honestly, I wouldn't mind seeing an official return of Zilla again. 2016 was big, as Toho would be making a new Godzilla film after 12 years, the start of the Reiwa era. Shin Godzilla. A take on what Godzilla could have been during that time, while still having a deep message hidden within all the carnage. I'll get to the point. Fans have primarily used this incarnation as an antagonist, especially if they're having him face off against legendary Godzilla. Why not? It's easy when he looks so horrific and has terrifying abilities. Again though, it's the deeper stuff people like to ignore. Shin's abilities come at a price. He is in constant pain and is in a world he doesn't appear to belong in, with no one, not even himself, knowing what he's even supposed to be. He would love to end it all, but that instinct to survive is so strong that when danger presents itself, all he can do is panic and try to adapt to it. How we come to even learn of this is through the song Who Will Know, a song based on Shin's point of view. I like a good kaiju fight as much as the next person, but those who are also creating these stories should also remember they're playing with living entities, even if fictional. They may be your own takes on them, but there is so much more you can do than just have them be nothing more than an antagonist, especially when these kaiju have something deeper going on that you yourself could expand. With Godzilla -1 out, I feel like we're going to have a similar situation like Shin, where people only focus on his monstrous nature rather than the tragic side of his story. I don't think anyone has said it better than Isiro Honda. Monsters are tragic beings. They are born too tall, too strong, too heavy. They are not evil by choice. That is their tragedy.